Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I believe we are live on Facebook right now. If you're sitting here on ISR Training, it is Friday, the 26th of June. It is 8 o'clock on the dot on this side of the world. It is roughly, Sam, what time is it over there, mate?
It is 3 p.m. here, Ryan, on Thursday, man. So it's time warp.
Time warp over in LA. Mate, I'm going to come to you in one quick second, but I do want to give you the intro that I know that you deserve. And also give everybody else a couple of minutes just to kind of work their way in.
Yep, no worries.
For everybody that's with us already, this is a different type of podcast today, different style of interview. As everybody knows, we are an ethical sales training organization, and our focus is really around helping people grow their businesses through ethical training and sales practices, helping them with their communication skills, helping them articulate the value of what they offer so that they can actually grow their business and indeed fulfill their potential. We believe as an organization that starts primarily upstairs. It starts in your head. And if that's not right in the first place, then you've got no ability to consume more information, new education, and perform to the best of your ability. So when I met the man that we're about to talk to today, getting on for 2 years ago, I think I actually saw you at a Gold Coast breakfast with Tom Tate, and you're on stage with Steve Baxter. Something really hit home for me with what you were talking about, and that's why I wanted to bring you on here, because the man that I'm going to be talking to, guys, he's on probably the biggest mission of his life right now. And when I tell you some of the things that he's achieved, you're going to see he's already done some tremendous things. But he's on a mission to break the stigma around mental health. Now that is obviously not easy, but you might actually recognize him from Home and Away, primarily, then Neighbours, and depending on how old you are. If you're my age, you might recognize him from all of that, and even Survivor in 2016. But today is primarily focusing around the company that he co-founded with Casey Lyons back in 2013, Livin. You'll be able to see the baseball caps behind him right there. As many of you know, we are proud partners of Livin. When we did our last physical tours, when we were allowed to get into a room with other human beings, 100% of our ticket sales went to this wonderful cause as well. So as I alluded to, Livin are on a charity that are on a mission to create awareness around mental health and suicide prevention through apparel programs and community activities. So all the way from Los Angeles, mate, Sam Webb, how you doing, pal?
Mate, thanks so much for having me on, man. I'm very grateful. We're all very grateful for the support that not only yourself, but your organization in ISR Training has had for Livin. And, mate, very lucky and grateful to have met you a couple of years ago. Grateful that we were able to connect and support one another on our missions to help more people.
Yeah, likewise, mate. I think sometimes there's moments in life, right, where you meet people and you go, I don't even know how there would be an overlap there. And if I was to be totally transparent, mental health, mental illness, depression, anxiety, I didn't understand it, and I still don't fully understand it, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there watching today that also don't. So I think the conversation needs to be had. I think just raising the awareness in the first place is a good thing. But mate, I would like to start, just to put everything into context for people, if you will, just with a little bit about your background, maybe your story and history, and then how Livin came about.
Absolutely, mate. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the warm welcome and the introduction. I guess my journey and the story of Livin really came about in 2013 after the death of our close friend, and his name was Dwayne Lally. And Dwayne's suicide death rocked and changed a community forever, and the impact that Dwayne's death had on an entire community changed my life. And I guess it was a turning point for a lot of people. And I guess that's where Livin was born itself. But let me just rewind that a moment, right? So if you can imagine me at 25 years of age in 2013 with a good friend at a party, he was also my age, Dwayne was. And I'm trying to paint the picture here for those of you who don't know much about Livin. Dwayne was the life of the party, very charismatic, very dominant. Didn't like appearing weak. In fact, he'd hide his vulnerabilities at all costs, and ultimately his own life. And Dwayne suffered with bipolar and depression for a number of years. And even at that stage in my life, when I was at a party with Dwayne, I was fortunate enough to have been with him the night that he passed. He opened up to me that night on levels that I didn't really understand myself. He spoke to me about challenges that he's faced before, and mental illness that's, rocked his own life, but also other friends that we were both friends with that, people had lost their life that we spoke about on quite deep lengths. And as Sam Webb, I thought I had the answers for a lot of things. I'd had my own struggles prior to this, ones that changed my life and really changed the way that I did life. And I still didn't feel like, what's the right word to say? I really didn't understand if I was saying the right things and if it was the right answers. But at that time, that's all I knew how to. I'd struggled with my own mental health challenges, and I reassured Dwayne everything was going to be fine. His life was amazing. And he reassured me, don't worry, Sam, life is great. I'm just telling you how I was in the past, and, my future looks really promising. And from that moment onwards, I remember Dwayne's last two words he said to me was, Sam, I'm fine. And they were the last two words that I heard from my good friend and, a son, a brother, a best friend to people. And they were the last two words that I heard from Dwayne before he went on and took his own life later that evening. And I look back on it that night and I think, did I say everything I could have said? Did I listen as best as I possibly could have? And knowing the information that I know now and all the research that I've done to this day and the people that I've spoken with, survivors who have tried to, take their own life and have survived, there were evident warning signs that night, but I didn't have the foresight to see them because maybe I wasn't being vulnerable myself. And I think that's quite common for a lot of males. We tend to look for solutions all the time. We tend to try and problem solve, and we tend to try and look for the ways to make things fixed and look for an easy fix and an easy way out. And oftentimes that's not what's needed when we talk around mental health and the discussion around mental health. And we can unpack this. I could talk about this for hours, but that's a very long story short, mate. And we started Livin soon after Dwayne took his life. And Livin at the time was just a passion brand. And he used to always say, we're Livin, man. We're going to the top. Him and I used to always say, we're going to the top. And part of the branding and the logo is all born from that. And then we started off literally with simple merchandise to try and spread a message of hope to people that were suffering in silence. Because Dwayne hid his pain very well. And he's not the only one that does this on a day-to-day basis. Why you and I sit here, Ryan, and we have a discussion around this and hopefully educate other people. There are people from all walks of life that are probably going through something similar, who have lost someone in their life prior before, or who are resonating with exactly what we're talking about. And it's a problem that, hasn't really gone away since we started Livin, but we're going to do our best to tackle it.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing that part. And what I will say straight off the bat, guys, if there's anybody listening that is affected by this or resonates with them, Lauren is going to be sharing some links and some numbers and some places that you can go to throughout this and also at the end. But what I also want to really make very clear is that Sam, and I mean this in the most endearing way, Sam is not a psychologist. He's not a psychiatrist. He's an everyday bloke. And we don't get trained to see these signs in people at school level, which is, I know, something that you'd be passionate about as well. But you do also have psychologists within your organization, mate. So that the reason I wanted to talk to you primarily, firstly, and we're going to have conversations with Luke as well, is because you are the everyday bloke, because you're the majority of people that I believe will be watching this today or in the future as well, mate. So you said that you didn't see any signs. Looking back, were there signs now? Is there something where you can go, yeah, okay, that does make sense now? Was there anything obvious that stands out after Dwayne passed?
Yeah, mate, there really was. I think some of the biggest lessons and signs that were probably that were evident that night was, alcohol involved, things like, change in behavior, change in body language. It just, something didn't add up. Dwayne, he was a very happy kind of go-lucky guy, but it was, looking back now, it was almost like he knew that was a decision he was going to make. And he was sort of saying his goodbyes. I feel like that was, part of it. And I feel like a lot of the warning signs and symptoms that we often talk about, ones that you probably can see, a lot of them are really not visible, and you can only really see them by the change in body language or change in behavior. They say 93% of non-verbal communication and cues and stuff like that are portrayed via body language and, you know, slouching and the way you shake someone's hand, the way you look at someone.
Yeah.
And I'm the first person to admit that I'm just a student of life. And, you know, this comes from a very, very important and sacred place in me, that while I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a mental health professional, so to speak, I don't believe you need to be a psychologist or a mental health professional to save someone's life. And I'm living proof of that.
Yeah, mate. I love that. And earlier on, you also referenced the people that are left behind, so to speak. So if you've got a friend or a colleague, and again, there might be people watching this right now, they might have lost loved ones to suicide. So there's two parts of it, right? You would have known Dwayne's family extremely well. Talk to me about the impact that it has on the people that are left behind and how we can even help those guys.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough one, because they say time heals all wounds or scars, but I don't believe it does. I feel like with time you can manage things better, but it will never go away.
Yeah.
And that's just my honest, you know, transparent thoughts and views on that. And I know Dwayne's family well, and, you know, they'll always, like a lot of us, will always have unanswered questions that no matter what we say or speculate or talk about or look at and look back in the past, there'll always be things that we don't have the answers to. And that's just the way this whole beast works. And I think what's really important, you know, most importantly to people who have lost someone or who is struggling currently while they're listening to this, or they know someone that's currently struggling with a diagnosable mental illness and hasn't lost someone, I think it's, you know, really important that just to be fully present as a listener is probably the most important thing to do, instead of actually knowing what to say. I think listening is probably the most important thing. And it's something that I look back at that night, and I often ask myself, was I listening? And I feel like I probably wasn't listening as best as I possibly could have. I was doing too much problem solving and not enough listening. And oftentimes when you talk too much, you miss the very things that people want to see and want to hear, you know?
Yeah. Mate, I mean, that definitely kind of crosses over to what we teach in general. And I had a question that came in to me a couple of days ago when we announced we were doing this webinar. And I know Damien, he's not available to watch it live, but I'm going to ask his question anyway. He said when he had a heart attack, everybody rallies around you and says, "How are you feeling? How can I help you? Is there anything I can do for you?" He then went through deep depression, and nobody was there for him. Why is that, in your opinion, mate?
I believe there's still a lot of stigma around mental health. Everything that Livin is trying to do is break the stigma, as you mentioned earlier. We're solely here to break the stigma around mental health, to empower people to speak up and seek help, because everyone deserves help, and there is a lot of help and support out there. I believe that, you know, people don't rally around certain things because there's a lack of understanding. There's not a lot of education around this topic. You know, when you and I went to school, Ryan, we probably didn't have people coming in to tell us what is mental health, what's mental wellness, what are warning signs, what are symptoms, how can you look after yourself, what's self-care strategies, what would you not say to someone that's struggling?
Yeah.
And I feel like because it's a very touchy subject, a lot of people feel like they can't even talk about it because they don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And the stigma is always there, even little remarks. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later and remind me to around things that you wouldn't say. But, you know, things that you could say to someone that might be struggling is like, you know, I want you to be able to share. Let me know a time or a place or a time or a location that makes you feel comfortable to share. You know, I might not exactly understand how you feel. Okay, but I'm willing to wait and I'm willing to stand by you and give you the best feedback that I can. And if I can't help, I'll point you in the right direction who will.
Yeah.
And it's about being honest. It's about being upfront, not judging people, not trying to be condescending and telling someone what to do, you know?
Yeah.
Like instead of sitting here and saying, why don't you go and get help? Or why don't you just exercise in one of these, you know, condescending tones, when most people are trying to have good intentions to help people. And oftentimes they are very helpful. It all comes across in the tone of voice. You know, look, I understand. Maybe, you know, what worked for Ryan may work for you, but it may not work for you, you know? So offering different solutions, being open-minded, being with them, waiting, you know, giving them permission to feel the way they feel and just shutting up and just listening and standing next to someone during their pain is oftentimes all they need.
Yeah, mate, I like that. And I like the words you used as well, like share and comfortable and security. Like they're safe words. So it's not just you're saying it, but subconsciously those words will actually have more impact, which is obviously something we talk about an awful lot anyway. So I think that again, that overlaps really nicely. And mate, you said we'll come back to it later, but I think it's probably a good point to talk about it right now. Talk to me about the things that we shouldn't be saying then. Is there any sort of, listen, that's actually going to make things worse? Yeah,
sure. Of course. Now, before I touch on that, I just want to, I want to challenge people. And this is something I believe wholeheartedly in. The more and more people I speak with on our podcast, through Livin, through channels, just here in LA, is I challenge people to become the safest person possible. Okay. Because if you become the safest person possible, people are going to be more inclined to opening up and sharing with you on a deeper level how they're actually feeling without feeling judged and, limited and stuff like that. And therefore you're going to get the truth. You're going to actually feel and try and understand through compassion and empathy what someone else may be feeling on a deeper level. But you cannot do that if you're not actually the safest person within yourself. And what I mean by that is trying to be vulnerable within yourself so that you can practice what you preach. And therefore other people around you are going to be more open to sharing with you because they can see it firsthand within yourself. So that's the first part. I feel like everyone needs to become the safest person possible. So that we can have these hard-hitting conversations, because things like, are you okay? Why don't you harden up? Why don't you just get over it? Why don't you just see a psychologist or just snap out of it? Like, while they're a lot of the time, seeing a psychologist and why don't you exercise and are you okay? A lot of great intentions around that, Ryan. There's a lot of great intentions, and people probably mean so well. Yeah. But again, it comes back to how they're saying it and the context that they're saying it. It can come across like you're diminishing how someone's actually truly feeling. You're downplaying their real emotions. Like, why don't you get help? Some people can't exercise because they don't have the will. They don't have the power to exercise. And if that works for you and me, which it definitely does for me, it might not work for the next 5 people. They might find writing or reading or sitting with their emotions and sharing when the time's right. But I always say encourage support, encourage professional help, encourage self-care strategies and solutions. Great, absolutely. But be very mindful how you say it and how that comes across. Don't say it in a in a judgmental manner. Don't say it in a way that is coming from a better place. Like you should already know this. Why aren't you doing it? Because that's not helpful. Yeah. It's really, really not helpful. And as you said earlier, listening in something to do with ISR training and sales and we learn it firsthand. Listening, right? Listening is the most important and powerful tool that you could have in your toolbox to save someone's life.
Yeah, amazing, mate. There's lots of comments coming in as well as you're going, so I think it's really resonating. A lot of people saying great input. Compassion with ourselves is paramount. Discussing it with everyone, bringing it out to the open is really important. Recognizing there is a stigma. So, mate, people are engaging on Facebook Live as well. And what I will say to you guys, if you've got any questions, please feel free to share them, and I'll ask them directly as you've taken time out of your day to come on here live. Mate, with what you were talking about then, sometimes we tell people to harden up, we tell people just to get on with it. Obviously we're not doing that for the wrong reasons. As you said, we're doing it because we're trying to help. And we can't understand what people are going through. If you've never been through it, and I haven't, so I really struggle I can't get in people's heads if they're going through some sort of mental illness. And Luke always talks about there being a difference between mental illness and mental health, right? So how early do we have to start educating ourselves on this for this to be just something that we do understand as human beings? Is this in primary school, kindy? Like, what is your mission here on the education side of things?
Okay, on the education side of things, I think it's important that we start young for a reason, because our brains aren't fully developed. We can change generational, I should rephrase that. It's a generational change if we start young and we follow through with attitude and behavior change projects, where people can actually start shifting the way they behave around mental health. But again, and you mentioned something pretty important before, and I just want to bring it back up, is even if you did struggle with something, Ryan, and mental illness back to front, you and I both don't know exactly how each other feels. Just because I've struggled and you do. No, I'm a big believer that no one knows exactly how you feel. No professional, no doctor, no lived experience, no survivor. We all have our own journeys.
Great point.
And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to sit there and, say, look, I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I'm here to listen. Yeah. I'm here when you're ready to get help. I'm here to ring the doctor. I'm here to ring the psychologist. If something's off, be with them, sit there and listen to them and offer them the help and when they need it. So I think it's important to notice that another, unhelpful thing to say to someone struggling is, look, man, I know exactly how you feel. You're going to be right. Everything's going to be great. Very unhelpful. But back to your most recent question. Sorry, mate. I just needed to bring that up. But
it's good.
Education is, we believe at Livin is, the most important thing, because with education comes understanding, and with understanding, comes compassion, comes empathy, comes love, and everything else. And really, they're all the things that you need to be able to help someone go from a point A to a point B. And everyone's different. It might take time. It might take different techniques, different strategies, a different journey, a different route, different process. But with the right help and the right support, hand on heart, people can get back on track and start living a very great life again.
Yeah, mate. Fantastic. And what about then as parents? Like I'm a newish dad. I've got an 18-month-old baby boy. I've got another one on the way in October. So I've kept that nice and close together. If it's not compulsory in schools by the time my boys go to school, how can we as parents have that conversation? Is there, how do we bring that to the table, to children?
Yeah. And mate, congrats on another young one on the way. I'm not a parent right as of today, but hopefully, mate, in the foreseeable future. But one thing, I think I'd like to see, and probably more of it, especially as, more and more of us are consumed by online media and connecting with, the tech world. I think going back to the old kitchen table, having dinner together and having open conversations, I think you can't undervalue that.
Yeah.
Encouraging your son or daughter to disconnect from, technical things like iPads, iPhones, Insta, Facebook, Snapchat, and having honest conversations with them. Like, how was your day at school today? Oh, it was all right, Dad. Yeah, but let's talk about it on a deeper level. Did something happen? Was it good? Tell me about your wins. What did you win? Did it make you feel good? We need to start understanding how people feel.
Yeah.
Talking about things. And if someone said, I had a bad day today, Dad, at school, or something didn't work out, how did it make you feel? Oh, I felt really low and I was angry because you kicked me off the playground. And okay. And at its worst, what sort of feelings did you have going on in your mind? Oh, I felt really angry and I was sad and I was upset. And then reassuring that, son, daughter, these are okay, these feelings to feel. These are okay emotions to feel, and we should accept them instead of trying to deflect them, and we should sit there and befriend them, because
can I just, sorry to cut you off, just on that. Do you think there's obviously a stigma as well we're not allowed to feel, not depressed or anxious, where we can't feel down. We should always be strong. We should always be positive. That suppression, obviously, that then just bubbles up inside and gets 10 times worse, right? Is that something that you've seen?
Yeah, it is, mate. It's like holding a glass of water, right? I say this as an analogy when I speak on my keynotes and whatnot. Is you can hold a glass of water half full, and I like to look at things as always half full. But I can only hold it out there strong enough for maybe 10 minutes before my arm starts shaking, and then it probably gives way. And at some stage that the glass is probably going to, crash and burn and spill everywhere. I liken that to your emotions. So it's really important to be able to say a problem shared is a problem halved. That's an old saying. So then I'd reach out to Ryan, mate, can you help me hold this glass of water up? And we'll be able to hold it up twice as long, and we'd be able to get help from the right people in the right time. Whereas if I was doing all of this myself, chances are I wouldn't be able to undertake it all alone, and I'll burn out, I'll crash. And, not everyone, that crash point doesn't mean I'm going to suicide or I'm going to, lose it completely. However, it could be, I turn to drugs, I turn to alcohol, I turn to disconnecting from my friends and family. Then other warning signs come into play. And that's when we talk about mental health versus mental illness.
Yeah, man, I love that analogy. That really helps kind of put it into perspective. And as you know, like we've coached thousands and thousands of businesses and business owners, individuals, and there's it's not really a sweet spot. It's the opposite reverse of whatever a sweet spot is. Around about that 18-month, 2-year mark, where people they lose their enthusiasm for the business. It's not as easy as it was right at the start. And that's why most 65% of businesses in Australia go under in 3 years, 95% go under in 5. How can we even for me, recognizing other business owners that I'm talking to on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, how can I get them when they're holding the cup half full right at the start? What are the early signs I can recognize? And then when can I see that glass start shaking? You know, when can I go, all right, this has gone a little bit too far now. We really need to kind of step in and see if we can help. Are there obvious signs that we can look out for?
From a business perspective?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, business. Yeah, I think there is. I think the only way to learn that and the only way to really identify that is just asking hard-hitting questions, you know, getting a better understanding of the person or the business at hand and what you're dealing with, finding out on a deeper level what the struggles are, what is the problems, and looking at solutions. Because, you know, to some people and to some businesses, Ryan, you and I both know this, a small problem to one person might be an astronomical problem to someone else. Okay. And then the right input or the right person saying the right word or the right project or giving you the right feedback at the exact right time, it could be the make or break between staying in business or making a decision to quit and get out of something. And this could relate to anything in life. What I say to someone is, if you're struggling and if you're in doubt, always reach out, because there is support out there, and you're not supposed to have the answers to everything. There is not one successful business in this world, not one, that is operating on their own. They might be sole traders. They might be self-employed. Great. But they have not gotten to that stage on their own. They've always asked for help. They've got someone doing their bookkeeping. They've got someone who's done their accounting. They've got some form of help at some different angle has come in at some stage of that life cycle. And that's the same thing that we have to understand with life as human beings.
Yeah, mate, that's amazing. And I reckon I've been guilty before as a coach, as a mentor, when people have asked me or shared with me their challenges of saying, that don't worry about that. That's nothing. But then if I was to really sit and think about it and get out of my own way for a second, 5 years ago, that was astronomical for me. So I think we also need to understand, as mentors, as leaders, as people that are trying to guide, that you can't compare your day 1000 to somebody else's day one.
Problems are relative, man. I mean, I can't sit here and God forbid it, you know, I can't sit here and say, well, if you've got cancer and I've got coronavirus, that you're more worse off than I am, because our problems in life are relative and they affect us each individually on some level. And that might be huge to me, you know, and that might be not as big to you. And that's just the way it is. And that's why it all comes down to, you know, not feeling like a burden. Don't feel like a burden to ask for help. Don't worry about your pride in business or being a burden as an individual not to ask for help because you feel like you don't deserve the help or there's someone else out there that's worse off than you. Because if you're going to continue to say that, that's your mentality, and that needs to change. Because if you've got that mentality and you think that you're a burden, that you think someone else is worse off, that's your own reality. And unfortunately, it's not the reality, and that's not the truth, and that's not how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing, mate. Okay, I just wanted to switch angles a little bit, because you did make the move over to LA recently in the last year or so. Firstly, talk to me about why we moved over. Was it for love? Was it for lifestyle? Was it for the greater mission, mate? Share that part, and then I'll go into where I want to go with this.
Yeah, mate, lovely. Good question too, because I think there's a few different angles on this one.
Be careful what you say to your missus listening.
Yeah, I know. She's probably listening in here somewhere. Mate, to be brutally honest, I'd already decided to make the move. You know, I'd moved from Gold Coast, you know, many years ago back to Sydney where I was born. And, you know, the culture in Sydney was amazing. The vibe, the energy, I just felt like it was my type of place to be. And then, you know, after 6 years in Sydney and feeling like I'd achieved a fair bit for myself, I was ready to go on to LA because I knew the culture, and I've been to the States, you know, quite a few times. I lived out here, you know, almost 10 years ago. Not in LA, in a different part of America, but I knew LA was a place that I wanted to get to at some stage in my life. And a big reason was, mate, I really like the culture here. It's a culture of, you know, acceptance. It's a culture of you can try anything and people will support you over here. It's a culture of, you know, you can speak up and you're not shamed. It's a culture of, you know, there are great things that you can achieve out here, both personally and professionally. And it just so happened, mate, that when I committed to the move, I'd met the love of my life, actually, in Bondi Beach, Australia, where I lived. And that was just before I was moving. And she's American, who was out in Australia for work. And it just so happened that we were both heading back at the same time. And one thing led to the next. I looked up in the sky, and the stars kept aligning. And here I am, man. I mean, LA is a great place. It might not be a place forever, but
Yeah.
I like to look at places that serve you a season or a reason. And this is certainly a place right now where I call home. And it's a place where I'm, pursuing a couple of projects. Obviously, Livin. I want to spread the Livin message. Obviously, I run the podcast from West Hollywood here in LA.
Yeah.
So I want to speak to the brightest minds, the most influential people from all walks of life, so that I can be educated, so that I can go back and educate our community, and take that information into walks of life that probably wouldn't have been possible otherwise. So I wanted to put myself smack bang in the middle of this culture, because I'm going to have a hell of a lot more chance doing that here, being here, rather than being back in Australia. And number two, mate, obviously, acting is a huge passion of mine. We could talk for hours around that as to why it's a passion of mine, but I'm in the place where dreams become a reality, and I'm here to pursue that acting dream relentlessly. There's no leaving this place until that's been achieved.
Yeah, wow, mate. That there's an answer for you. I moved over to Australia in 2010 because I like the sunshine. So it's a slightly different mission, but I've found purpose in life ever since.
Love it, man. Well, that's it. Everyone's very different, mate. I do love the sunshine over here, and I love the Mexican food. It's a bit chaotic at the moment, but mate, look, this is home right now.
I saw earlier we've got where have they gone? We've got somebody from Mexico watching right now on Facebook Live as well. So we're
lovely.
All sides of the world. But you touched on it there about the cultural differences. They're a little bit more open, and that's really what I wanted to kind of ask you is there a difference in the stigma of mental illness and mental health in America comparative to here, do you believe?
Yeah, well, there absolutely is. I mean, I'm in LA. It's certainly land of the open, land of the free. You can be anyone you want, and you don't get looked at twice, right? You can say anything you want. You're not judged. This place in particular, in Southern California, Los Angeles, is certainly a place where, you can speak up, people openly talking about seeing their therapist, and this is the experience they had. And it's very accepted here. Stigma is still strong. Don't get me wrong. Stigma is still here, and suicide is very, prevalent. But certain parts of the conversation are very, very freed over here. I mean, people feel less stigmatized or less pressure to seek help. There is a lot of help and support here, as there is in Australia, but I feel like the conversation is a little bit more advanced in this part of America. But then again, I've spoken in, probably 15, 16 states here in the States over the past 5 or 6 years. And there are some places where speaking about your challenges isn't a thing, and seeing a therapist isn't a daily conversation. So I feel like LA is just this, it's just this culture of people from everywhere in the world that are just there for a couple of reasons. And that's to pursue career, to chase dreams, and just to network and meet people. And there's just no cares given in the world.
Nice, mate. I love it. I'll get over there and visit you one day, mate. And,
mate, get over here, man. Get over here. I'll show you a good time.
I bet you will. Makes me nervous. Mate, talk to me, because I've only got about 11 minutes left.
Nice.
You're on Survivor, I believe, and as I did my research, I didn't realize you're on the same series as Flick.
Yes.
As well, and I've known Flick for many, many years as well. But you survived 49 days, is that right? In there,
49 days, man, out of 55. I got right there, but couldn't quite close the deal, as you'd say.
Close. We could have done with training you just before you went in.
Yeah.
So, mate, that was back in 2013. Sorry, no, it was in 2016. Obviously, Livin was formed in 2013. So, do you think, in any sort of way, was there a correlation with you being able to mentally survive Survivor? Because I'm sure it was a mental challenge as well, with the education that you'd gone through for the 3 years prior.
Yeah, mate, it was. I mean, given where I was in the journey of my life, I likened the game of Survivor at its best to a social gathering, to trying to get put into a party with people that you need to be friends with. So it was socially strong in that regard, but at its worst, mate, it was like, I remember, vividly the times where I've struggled really, really bad with, mental illness and mental health challenges, back 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I still have struggles today, where there was times through that game where I likened it to that, the experience of voices in your mind. You're not good enough. You're never going to make it. You may as well quit, all this stuff. And struggling, mate. I really struggled out there. There was times in the game where I wanted to quit, and it wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but the most rewarding.
What did you think about in those times, Sam? When you're sitting there, literally saying those words to yourself in your head, how do you snap yourself out of it?
Yeah, I brought everything back to why. Like, why did I sign up for Survivor in the first place? And a friend of mine told me to sign up for it because she thought I'd be the best for it, and it'd be great for me and great for the charity. So I just reminded myself why I was here, and I tried to silence everything else by just staying with those emotions, but also accepting them, not getting angry that they were telling me to quit and all that sort of stuff. Sort of sitting there going, this is all right to feel like this. I'm out in the middle of nowhere on an island in Samoa with strangers, and pouring rain, no food, but times are going to change. Tomorrow's a brand new day, man. Like, I'd have really bad thoughts one night after 2 days of nonstop rain, no sleep, hallucinating almost. And then I'd wake up to brand new sunshine on a brand new day, and we're ready to get ready for a challenge. And then it would be like, I'm back, baby. We'd talk amongst the tribe. I'd psych them up. They'd psych me up. And it was a brand new day. And had I made decisions in that present moment of feeling uncomfortable and defeated, it would have been a whole different outcome. And that's why I tell everyone, if you're struggling right now, hold on, because those times, they do pass. Okay, they do, and it might be instantly, it might be in a day, it might be in a month, 6 months, 12 months, but they do eventually pass.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, but amazing experience, mate. I advise anyone to do it, and you never know, mate. I might get another shot at it.
How real is it in there, mate? Because I know for us, as you know, we went on Shark Tank, and it was a big old production. There's lots going on, but the pitching and the negotiating, that was real, and I think people actually a little bit scripted, but it wasn't. What? Can you tell us much behind the scenes? I'm sure people have got an interest.
You, mate, the crew would have been, I reckon, as far as crew on the island, there would have been 300 plus people. But as far as being in your tribe, mate, there was nothing handed to us. Cameraman weren't allowed to talk to you. They weren't allowed to eat, drink, or anything around you. We were eating rice, and if the fire wasn't alight, which it wasn't for a lot of it because of the rain, and without fire, you're not cooking nothing. You're eating coconuts, and that's all you're eating. Wow. And it was tough, mate. It really was. It was the hardest experience of my life. There was nothing that was done behind the scenes that no one saw part of me on TV. It was as real as it comes. And as I said, I was totally shocked. I got on the island the first day, won the first challenge for our tribe, got fire, and I thought this is going to be easy. Got back to tribe, and I'm like, why is no one talking to me? Like, I actually thought that there would be a little bit of help behind the scenes, but there was zero. There was nothing. It was very, very hard game. Very hard game. Mentally harder than anything. Socially, mate, I'm socially strong normally, so I pride myself on relationships and dealing with people and listening, compassion, and all that sort of stuff. The mental game was the strongest, hardest part of the game.
Yeah, amazing. And congrats for what you achieved there, mate. That's amazing. Last couple of questions just to sign off for this Friday morning or Thursday afternoon. Basic self-care strategies is something that I've heard you talk about before. Just little things that we can do or that you already do to live well and maintain a good mental health, mate. What are they, and do you mind sharing them?
Sure, mate. I think it's important for everyone to be proactive and have a toolkit of things that work for you. But most importantly, it's what you enjoy. Don't do something because Sam Webb told you from Livin or Ryan told you from ISR to do something. Do it because you actually enjoy it. For me, I like going for a walk. I like waking up at a certain time every day, having my green tea, getting my reading in at night and in the morning, reading, whether it's 5 pages or 6 pages, knowing that I get a good night's sleep. These are all part of self-care strategies that work for Sam Webb. Exercising. I need to train at least once a day. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I have to go sweating down the house or lifting weights and throwing around, metal in the gym. It might mean going for a nice walk, a 2-mile walk, 2-kilometer walk, whatever it is. Moving is very important for me. I've noticed that that's part of my life, and that will never change. But one thing that's probably come into play for me in the last maybe 3 to 4 years, one that's probably overtaken almost all of them, is what I'm fueling my body with. So what I'm eating is really a game changer, mate. So if I put good stuff into my body, good vegetables, good food, not too much sugar, limit the dairy, don't eat red meat. I was pescatarian for almost 2 years. I'm now back having chicken partially, once a week, and I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling great. Food is a big part of my life. Not that I'm the best cook, but putting the right food into my body, it's like putting the right fuel in a car. And if you put the wrong stuff in there, it ain't going to work. So that's for me. But for some people, it might be reading, it might be painting, it might be joining a class, it might be listening to music, it might be ringing a friend, FaceTiming someone, hanging out with someone, playing with their dog, whatever it is. Find what works for you. And if you don't know what works for you, just start trialing new things. Start trying to get out, try to expand your horizon, step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, phenomenal, mate. We've got Leslie's put gut health is where it's at, and I think eating correctly, you are what you eat, right? But you're also what you consume mentally as well. So be careful of the information that you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. I talk often in training that I audit my network and I audit my news feeds once a month to make sure that I'm consuming the right information that keeps me in a good headspace and I'm surrounded by the right people.
Well, a good one I found, mate, too, just quickly, I read this actually just recently, is we talk about fasting. I do intermittent fasting almost every other day, every second day, and that's like a 15 hour no eating. So I'd have my last meal at 6 o'clock at night tonight, and I wouldn't eat until 10 o'clock tomorrow. But we talk about intermittent fasting all the time. It's very acceptable. I've heard of social media fasting, which is probably a good one too. Signing off, staying off it for a certain period of time, not touching your phone. I don't sleep with my phone in my room. My phone is nowhere near me. It's in a different room. It's in the kitchen charging. I put it there probably an hour and a half, 2 hours before I go to bed, and I don't look at it for the first hour when I wake up. So I have my own fasting for my phone, but I'd like to do more.
I like that. Social media fasting. There we go. Let's see. Try that. Don't do it just yet because we've got a few more minutes. Yeah. Mate, got a question come from Crystal. She said, is there a way we can help to get mental health into school curriculum, and do you have curriculum content written?
And was that Crystal that asked that?
Yeah.
Crystal, great question. One that we've tried to inquire and investigate for quite some time. It's a tough one. The curriculum is a national curriculum in Australia, and getting in that can be quite challenging. There is things out there. I don't know them exactly and which ones are being implemented in certain schools. It certainly is possible, can be done. I believe in certain HPE classes now, they've got things that are designated to wellness. But again, I don't know the depth as to where they go. But something that I think and I believe will be in the curriculum, and it will be probably implemented mandatory, sooner rather than later. I see that as a no-brainer, and something that Livin, we've certainly looked into before.
Yeah, amazing. And thank you, Crystal, for that question. It's important. Mate, we've got one more minute, so I just want to wrap it up by saying, firstly, thank you very much for your time. I know you're super busy over there as well. You've got lots of things on the go, but I love how passionate you are about this and the impact that you're having. I think you probably don't even realize the impact that you're having on people that you never get to meet, that you never get to hear from. And I think that's something that you should be really proud of, and we're proud to partner with you guys. So moving forward, for everybody that's watching or listening now or in the future, how can they get involved or even help Livin, mate?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks again for having me. Very, very lucky, very grateful to be on here. Everyone inspires me to be better, mate, every day. So without people supporting and being changed and moved, I probably wouldn't be able to do my job. So thank you. As far as getting in touch with us, hit us up at livin.org, LIVIN.org, or you can find us at Livin.org on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Support the movement, buy merch, book a program, hit us up. We can get your online program. Something that, Livin and what we've recently rolled out is our online program around the mental health awareness training, which is amazing. It's a 1 hour program, which we can deliver online, where people can, staff, employees, students, people can listen to the program, watch the program, engage with the program, and learn really simple tools and strategies to live better, and break the stigma around mental health.
Yeah, amazing, mate. We've done that course, guys. We did the Livin Well program. 45 minutes to an hour, I think. Was it, Sam, you say? It was something we did as a team. And I think it's a really good exercise to do as an organization and be totally vulnerable around each other. And it really kind of helps us understand where we're all at and to what signs to look out for. And then if anything, just go and buy yourself a cap, go and buy yourself a hoodie, because the Hemsworths have got one anyway. So that must mean it's worthwhile getting, right?
Yeah, mate, absolutely. And everyone's got the power to make and change a life. So don't ever underestimate your own skill set, guys. As I said earlier, you don't have to be a professional to help someone and save someone's life, but the conversation needs to be started ASAP or as of today.
Amazing, mate. And hopefully we've limped towards 1% of doing that today. So guys, thanks to everybody that watched on Facebook. Really appreciate all your questions. If you do have any other questions that come in, obviously you can reach out to Sam himself directly through Livin or socials, or we can redirect them for you as well. Mate, what social media channel should they find you on?
They'll find me at just Instagram or Facebook, mate, Sam Webb, SAMWEBB. Happy to field queries, questions, and if I can't answer them, I'm very upfront and transparent, and I'll point you in the right direction to get those answers answered.
Amazing, guys. All right, have yourself a great Friday, and we'll speak to you soon.
Much love, guys. Take care. Look after yourself. Thanks, bro.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you, mate.